Hello everyone, in this video I'll be ranking the best Sorcerer subclasses in Baldur's Gate 3 on a tier list. Now, Patch 8 brought us the new Shadow Magic Sorcerer, but it also fixed the Storm Sorcerer, fixing one of their class abilities. So we'll be breaking out all of this, giving the power rankings, and I just want to first mention the Sorcerer is an S tier class overall, so no matter what you pick, you'll have a great time, but there are some that are a little bit stronger than others. I'll start off with the newest Shadow Magic Sorcerer here, which at level 1 gives you the Strength of the Grave, so if you get down, you can stand back up with 1 health point, which is a nice ability, giving you a bit more survivability, kind of similar to the Draconic bloodline, which gives extra health and their built-in mage armor. I actually think this is a little bit of a better ability, because you can also just get scrolls of mage armor. You also get superior dark vision up to 24 meters, which is pretty nice. But at level 3, they get this very powerful ability, the Eyes of the Darkness, which blinds anyone that doesn't have the ability to see in magical darkness, which only the Warlock and now the Shadow Magic Sorcerer have that ability. There are 3 items in the game that actually allow you to see in this. Now, if you hate darkness, just don't use the subclass. I'll be honest with you guys. Anytime that I do a build on this video, I get people complaining about me using darkness, but that's the whole point of the Shadow Magic Sorcerer. You want to utilize these shadows, as that's something that's really effective in this game. Some people call it cheating, but it's a game mechanic. The enemy's AI doesn't work properly with this, though. They will only resort to throwing attacks. They won't do melee attacks typically into darkness, and they won't do ranged attacks, and they typically won't spellcast too much either. It is a possibility they will, but it's very unlikely. They mostly do throwing attacks, but the darkness is powerful because we also get some other abilities that power this up even further, like our Hound of Ill Omen that we get at level 6. This is a dog that costs 3 sorcery points. It's now permanent. It used to be till long rest, but you can actually do this before you rest, and you'll keep your dog into the next day, which is actually a really nice buff because it costs 3 sorcery points. However, it does come with the Ominous Bite and also a Umbral Tangle spell. So when you summon in the Goodest Boy here, you can utilize your darkness alongside the dog. I also have a mod by Graphic Fade there that makes it look like a Shadow Curse dog, but it has this Ominous Bite. It doesn't always have the highest hit chance of landing, and also the chance you also have a chance to land the omen here, which whenever there's an omen on the enemy, let's say it's an omen of acid, you then have to deal acid damage to the target and you recover 1 sorcery point. So this can refund the cost and also keep fueling your quickened spells. I'll be honest, from using this throughout a lot of different playthroughs, you're not going to apply the omens that much. You may get like 2 sorcery points max per combat, just depends how long it gets dragged out. But it also has the Umbral Tangle form here, which can trap your enemies in shadowy vines. And the extra cool ability of the dog is that whenever it gets attacked with damage, like a physical attack that does not have radiant damage, it'll splinter off into another dog. So you can actually have like 10 dogs on the battlefield if you get really lucky, and keep healing them using things like your aid spells and your Hero's Feast, everything that's going to buff up its overall health. Because it keeps getting attacked, it keeps creating these splintered off dogs, and then they'll run around using the Umbral Tangle, which restrains targets for 3 turns. This is actually really great for crowd control, and you can kind of set and forget by using the dog that way. The dog itself is really powerful. Some people think it's a little bit underwhelming with only 42 health, but as long as you're healing it and allowing that Shadowed Splinter to keep activating, you can get a lot of these dogs, and they do make a big difference. It can also hide out in your darkness if it needs a little bit extra defense, so there's a lot of ways to utilize this. Now, all of the Sorcerer level 11 abilities are quite powerful, but the Shadow Walk here teleports you to anywhere that's lightly or heavily obscured, and you get Distance Spell, which will increase your spell's range by 50%. This is actually pretty crazy, and here's why. So first, it's extremely generous in what it considers to be lightly obscured. Here, we're inside a building, so a lot of this, you can see, we can teleport to. Typically, it's going to be anywhere that's got even a slight shadow, so if you're outside, you can see here, it's actually quite generous. A lot of these shadows will let you teleport. So yeah, you got a lot of options, but what's most powerful about this is actually using your Eyes of the Dark. Let's say you set up your little darkness camp here. Now, darkness, again, is a big component of this build, so you want to utilize it whenever possible. You can then shadow step to this, and then you get the distance spell here. So the range of your chain lightning becomes massive. You can see here, you actually get a huge range. And another fun thing too is that whenever you utilize this, if you have a single level dip of the Warlock and you took the Dethrone spell, it actually has a much larger radius. Like these have an 18 meter radius. Dethrone, oddly enough, is a 30 meter radius. With a 50%, it becomes 45 meters. You can snipe them from downtown like you're Steph Curry. Absolutely crazy. So yeah, it's nice on Magic Missile because sometimes you just need to retreat to your shadows, but you can still then hit targets that are really far away without even much thought. This in itself is extremely powerful, and that's why I think this is maybe the most powerful level 11 ability, because you get the ability to be safe in your own darkness, which makes up for the lack of health compared to like the Draconic Sorcerer. But yeah, it's got extended range, the dog, it's got darkness, it's got a lot of great stuff, and with the Strength of the Grave, you can come back up if you ever get downed. And if you're looking to multi-classes, since you get the shadow magic at level 3 here, you can apply darkness. Multi-classing things like the paladin, making a shadow paladin is actually extremely powerful because you also get this new shadow blade cantrip, you get booming blade. So this is a great multi-class, or great if you take it all the way to level 11. I actually think that this is an S tier pick overall. I've had some people say they hate this class, but I think it's just because they hate darkness. If you utilize it, it's one of the most powerful abilities in the game, so I'd be silly not to put it in the S tier. Try out the shadow magic sorcerer. If you're a non-believer, try out the darkness. You're going to see how powerful this truly can be. Now, Storm Sorcerer actually got that buff, as I mentioned, in patch 8. So there's a bit of a change to it, one of its abilities, but level 1 gives it the most mobility out of any of the subclasses because you get ability to fly as a bonus action without getting opportunity attacks. So if you don't use your quicken spell, you can then fly away, not getting hit, which is nice. Again, the Shadow Magic Sorcerer actually has a similar ability when you get to level 11, so you can teleport, which is arguably a lot better because you can then teleport and get that distance spell, saving your hide. But this is really nice, especially early on in the game. They all have some form of defensive buff, except the wild magic, like you get the armor class boost. But the Storm Sorcerer, again, can take mage armor. I would actually recommend, if you don't take Draconic Sorcerer, to grab scrolls of mage armor, because with the Sorcerer, you only have a select amount of spells, and typically you don't want to burn them up with mage armor when you can find this from a scroll really easily. Now, the Storm Sorcerer doesn't get anything at level 3 like the Shadow Magic would. But once you hit level 6, you actually get a lot of subclass features. So you get the Heart of the Storm. So whenever you cast a spell that deals lightning or thunder damage, you create a small storm that'll do half your sorcerer level in damage. So at level 12, it's 6 damage points of lightning or thunder. This can proc some extra gear. There's a lot of thunder and lightning based gear in the game, which is nice. But another big benefit is the Heart of the Storm resistance. So you become resistant to lightning and thunder damage. That's great. Despite not having a lot of spells, it's just a nice thing to have that extra resistance. Obviously, fire resistance is a little bit better, but unlike the Draconic, who has to spend a sorcery point to get the resistances, you have these built into your character, which is nice. Now, little note here, if you become wet, if you get hit with the water bottle or something like that, you actually lose that lightning resistance. You become vulnerable to it. And if you become frozen, which is not likely whatsoever, but you could, you become vulnerable to thunder damage as well. So these resistances are, for the most part, going to be on your character, but there are some ways they can be removed. But I really want to focus on this here, Create or Destroy Water. If you quicken this, you can then hit a target for double the damage if you use a lightning or cold spell. So your chain lightning goes from 80 damage max to 160. That's absurd. Highly recommend using Create or Destroy Water. Typically, I like to do a single level dip of the cleric to take water and get heavy armor with the tempest domain, because it also has a reaction. But if you're going with the Storm Sorcerer, you don't have to do that because you get everything you could ever want. With the Thunder Wave, Gust of Wind is nice too because you can push creatures off of ledges. Sometimes you'll get an easy knockout with that. Sleet Storm can stop concentrations. It's really good. And then Call Lightning is an okay damage choice, but we do have some better ones here, obviously, with something like Lightning Bolt, which can hit multiple targets. And the thing that they fixed in patch 8 is the Storm's Fury. So when you're hit by a melee attack, you deal your sorcerer level in lightning damage back to the target and potentially push them away. Previously, this used to be just thunder damage for whatever reason. It said it was 11 lightning. If you've seen it, it was actually thunder. Patch 8 corrected this to correctly be lightning damage. As mentioned, lightning's a little bit better because you can double the damage with the water condition or wet condition. So that's really nice. It also can potentially push a target back, which you can get if you take the Tempest Domain Cleric. So they actually kind of combine together really nicely. If you have a Cleric, make them a Tempest. But again, a big piece of this is getting the Create or Destroy Water spell. This prevents you from having to take a single level dip. Water is the most underrated spell in the game, I swear, because it can set up the ability to deal double damage. If there's invisible creatures, the water will actually make them visible again. And yeah, it doubles your damage. It can put out the burn condition. There's a lot of things, like if you're going against like the fight in Act 3 where you have to save Volo, Create or Destroy Water is going to be your best friend there. Sleet Storm is also a really good spell because, yeah, you see that area? It's huge. It hits in a massive area of effect. So you can call down the Sleet Storm there, boom. It'll create those ice surfaces, which makes people slip and fall, which is funny too. But yeah, Sleet Storm is an extremely effective spell for a variety of reasons. This is one less that you have to take. You also get the Gust of Wind, which you can see there. Can sometimes push people off of ledges and stuff like that, which is nice. But yeah, great spell selection. The resistances and the ability to fly makes this actually a really good subclass. I personally prefer the Draconic Sorcerer, but if you're going to be looking at these two objectively, I do think that the Storm Sorcerer brings a lot of extra value to the table. Because once you get to level 11, the Draconic Sorcerer can fly, but you can also fly from a variety of different ways. And the Storm Sorcerer can fly from level 1, despite it requiring a bonus action. You don't get hit with opportunity attacks like the Draconic Sorcerer would. I think this is another S tier pick. I personally used to think this was A tier and the Draconic Sorcerer was S tier, but after patch 8 correcting their level 11 ability and it makes it a lot more effective, this kind of changed the power rankings. Previously, the Draconic Sorcerer was my favorite subclass in the entire game. I think the Shadow Magic Sorcerer actually replaced that, and the Blazing Wizard. Those are two really fun classes, but the Draconic Sorcerer, it gets an extra 1 health point, so at level 12, it's 12 extra health. Looking at it from a resource perspective, this is maybe an extra attack that you can survive, or an extra Scorching Ray Bolt, something like that. That's good. You also get the Draconic Resilience, so you can increase your armor class to 13, which gives you the +3 armor class, basically built-in mage armor. But as mentioned, get scrolls of it. You'll save yourself from taking the spells. Now, there's actually a few really good choices here. So the Draconic Ancestry Armor of Agathis, this is probably the best way to go about it, because this will give you this very powerful spell that you normally can't get unless you take a Warlock dip. Also, if you go with the fire one, you can actually boost up your abilities quite a bit, because at level 6, you add your charisma modifier to any elemental damage type. So fire, Scorching Ray can get a +6 or +7 to each Scorching Ray bolt. That becomes pretty high damage. It's not going to be as strong as some of the others, but we'll get into that. If you want to do a cold sorcerer, this is the best way to do it. The Storm Sorcerer can't compete. It's just better to do it this way. Now, its level 6 abilities are nice. As mentioned, you add your charisma modifier to your damage type associated with your Draconic Ancestor. So I love cold damage in this game. If you take a single level dip in the wizard and you get Odaluk's Freezing Sphere, you can add a little extra damage to that. You can add a little bit extra damage to your ice storms. It's nice, but if you're going for a cold damage, that's the way to do it. A lightning sorcerer is probably better to do the Storm Sorcerer, in all honesty. But you also get the elemental affinity of resistance. So whenever you deal a damage type that's associated with your Draconic Ancestor, you can spend 1 sorcery point to gain resistance to that damage type. Now, I can count on one hand how many times I've used this ability, and I can, I guess, never say that it's ever been really that effective for me. I'm sure there's some instances where this could be really good. After using this class a bunch, it's a nice thing to have, but it's not going to be a massive game changer. So you're really looking at level 6, getting that extra damage type to your Draconic Ancestry form. It's best utilized if you were to take Scorching Ray and take the fire one. Fire damage isn't as good as lightning and cold damage in the meta Baldur's Gate 3, which obviously kind of sucks. But if you have Hold Person set up, that can be some pretty good damage, because your Scorching Rays will automatically critically hit if you're within 3 meters. Now, I really like the fly ability, but if you are going to use Illithid abilities, and if you use the Astral Tadpole, you're going to get the ability to fly before this subclass feature. So it almost becomes useless if you use Illithid abilities, but it's nice to have if you don't. Again, the Storm Sorcerer can do this from level 1 without getting hit with opportunity attacks. You can fly, but it's flayed at a cost. Sometimes you're going to proc those opportunity attacks. Like, yeah, it's nice and all to be able to fly, but yeah, you can get it from other ways. There's flying potions, there's flying spells. It's something that I like to have, but you're likely going to have some other form of it already. Also, I really like that built-in +3 to armor class, but it's, again, something you can easily get with the scrolls of mage armor, or just by taking the mage armor spell yourself, or if you got someone else, like a wizard, that can cast it on you. So yeah, there's a lot of ways that you can utilize this, thanks to Gale. My favorite subclass, but I think that it is a little bit lesser than the Shadow Magic and the Storm Sorcerer, which have much. They are also quite defensive, and they can obviously get that mage armor, which is a big draw to this one. I'm going to put this one in the A tier. Again, just want to repeat, it used to be my favorite subclass, but I do think it has a bit of limitations with how you can build your character. If you're doing a cold damage caster, this would be the best way to do it. If you're doing a lightning damage caster, the Storm Sorcerer is better. And good old Wild Magic. This is actually a really strong one too. Wild Magic is obviously very chaotic, but very fun. So you can use your Tide to Chaos to get advantage on your next ability check, which is really good. But it gives you a 45% chance of triggering a Wild Magic Surge. There's also an item that you can get in Act 3 that makes it 100%, which is actually pretty useful. Wild Magic can either boost up yourself or harm yourself. If you find this interesting, I recommend trying one. Once you hit level 6, you get the Bend Luck ability here, which you can spend 2 sorcery points to give a target a 1d4 bonus or penalty to an ability check. You can apply this bonus or penalty to an attack roll, saving throw, or as a reaction. So this does eat up your reaction, but this can sometimes help you out. Like, let's say that your teammate's about to get hit, and they need to roll 1 higher to be able to get a save on it. This is worth doing. Anything that's like 1 to 2 points, I'd recommend doing it, because this rolls a 1d4 and then adds that bonus to their ability check, saving throw, etc. So there's instances where you want to use it. If you need to roll a 4, I wouldn't recommend doing that, because you're likely just going to burn through your sorcery points and not actually make a change. But for the 1 or 2, it's, again, bending luck, so you got to be a little bit lucky with it. This lets you strategize, though. And the level 11 ability is actually quite hilarious. You get the controlled chaos. So foes may suffer a wild magic surge when casting spells near your fluctuating magic. So you can use a reaction to trigger a wild magic surge. This is funny because it's a guaranteed wild magic surge and it takes up 1 reaction, which is nothing. So actually this level 11 ability is possibly one of the best, but it can also be one of the worst too, because let me go over the wild magic surges. From my experience though, it typically ends up being the negative effects from this, but you can also get the positive ones. I'll just quickly run through all the wild magic abilities because there actually is quite a few of them. So you can get action surge, blur, so it blurs yourself. You can burn yourself. You can create a Cambion, which I've had happen multiple times in battle and actually becomes really chaotic because when you have a Cambion, you have to fight alongside everything else. That's a lot. There's also cats and dogs. You can turn all your teammates and enemies into cats and dogs, which is pretty funny. There's enchanting weapon, which adds your next hit to become a critical hit and deal an additional 1d4 of force damage. There's enlarge or reduce. You can make people big or small. You can entangle. You can do an exploding heal. You can fly, create fog, polymorph enemies nearby, resilient sphere so that it sticks the person in one place. They can't cast spells. You can apply shield, slow. You can give sorcery points back to yourself equal to your spell casting level that you use. So if you do chain lightning, that's 6 sorcery points back. Pretty crazy value if you get that one. There's also speak with animals, spike growth. You can summon methods. You can swap places with the target. You can use telekinesis. You can teleport, and you can turn magic, which will give a new ability at the start of each turn. So that's all the different wild magic surges. Some of them benefit the target. Sometimes they don't. But from my experience when utilizing this, it's typically, I find that it summons a Cambion the most. I don't know why, but yeah, it's a pretty useful skill. So where does the wild magic sorcerer sit on this tier list? Now, I think that the chaoticness of this is kind of a downside, obviously, because if you're doing honor mode, I wouldn't recommend using this one. If you're outside honor mode, though, this is, I think, a little stronger than the wild magic sorcerer, just because the abilities will sometimes boost you up quite a bit. It's the unreliability of it, though, that keeps me from putting it at the top. I don't think it's even B tier. I think it's an A tier subclass. As I mentioned, the sorcerer itself is really strong. If I were to really rank it, maybe somewhere around there, just because the unnatural or the RNG effect of this class can sometimes screw you over really hard. However, it is a really good subclass. I think the wild magic is really useful in a variety of different situations. Being able to reduce a 1d4 from an enemy's ability check that, or give a 1d4 bonus, that is really good. So it's great for strategists and people that like to play the game with a kind of mental mind. But it is a little bit more to manage than the other subclasses. So in my honest opinion, I do think the Shadow Magic Sorcerer is the new most powerful subclass in the game. They gave it a bunch of homebrew and made it very strong with the dog, just due to how magical darkness works. Now, this isn't going to be the same as in tabletop D&D. Some people say, hey, in D&D, this is better. It's a little different in a video game because we have surfaces, and the way that the maps and things work is much different than a tabletop setting where darkness can really be utilized. And the Storm Sorcerer is also quite powerful. I used to think that the Draconic was better, but now after a bit of testing and getting it changed in patch 8, I think the Storm Sorcerer is a bit better. And yeah, these obviously any sorcerer you pick will be a powerful choice. So again, let me know your thoughts in the comments, what you think to be the most powerful sorcerer subclass in Baldur's Gate 3. Hit the subscribe button below if you have not already. I hope you have a great day, and we'll catch y'all in the next video.